Welcome to another edition of Moorish World TV. I am your host, Brother Tahaka Bay. Family, we back in the building. Listen. I know. Don't hate because I'm late. When y'all begin to do the Umar Johnson dance and hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal, hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal. That's right, hit the Cash App, hit the PayPal. Listen, man, I don't get a check for this, man. YouTube don't pay no brand like that. So y'all ain't gonna be bossing me around. I get here with that. Nah, just playing. Nah, man, perfection takes time, man. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Dennis, hold up, family. Dr. Asar is are you still in Jamaica, brother? Now listen, they done circled the wagons on Tasha. Yeah, they circled the wagons on her. And you ran to Jamaica. Them FBAs then circled the wagon on Tasha K. I think that's her name. Is that her name? The wine lady. They circled the wagons on her, and you then ran to Jamaica. Oh, man. Somebody said, where's the bass in my mic? Need the bass? Let me see the bass. You need the bass? All right, hold up. Hey, how'd that sound, Crip? How'd that sound? Did my mic sound crazy? I thought my mic sound pretty good, actually. Yeah, they circled the wagons on Tasha K. Called her a tether. Yeah, they called her a tether. They say her husband a tether, all that. And you ran on to Jamaica. Don't make no sense, man. It don't make no sense. Somebody say my audio sound like I'm on AM. Is that right? Crip, you might have to restart, man. My audio sound good in my ear. Oh, let me see. Check 1 2. How I sound? I mean, they call her husband what? How my mic sound, Starlight? How my mic sound? So, family, tonight we're going to be talking about is Farrakhan, the Minister Farrakhan. I might have spelled his name wrong because it say Farra. Don't worry about it, Brother Farrakhan. It was a typo. It was a typo. Is the Minister Farrakhan the Messiah? Family, you know, when I first heard that, because I remember when the minister really took off in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? I remember when he really took off in the 80s. And he put the NOI on his back. And to me, from my vantage point, to me, I thought that was a good thing when he put it on his back. Well, I watched it all throughout the 90s, and I was like, man, it seemed like he went left a little bit in the 90s, you know what I mean? Seemed like he went left a little bit. And even when people was all teary-eyed and dewy-eyed about the Million Man March, I was like, what you gonna do with all this power? What you gonna do with all these numbers? What you gonna do with all this finance? You know what I'm saying? So, but people felt so good. It was an ego booster. It was what they call that? It was a placebo. a confident placebo. That's what it was. It was a confident placebo. You know what I mean? It was a sugar pill. It ain't had no medicine in that demonstration. So I'm just saying. So, and I look at things the way they really are, not what they seem to be. But then in the 2000s sometime, I started seeing them calling the minister the Christ. I was like, what? They started calling him the Christ. And then the Messiah. And then the divine reminder. Or then the divine reminder. I don't know which order it went in, but that's the order I heard. And I heard the Christ first. I said, oh, man. I told my friend, my homeboy, my best friend that I grew up with, that was a member of the nation, he's Sunni Muslim now. I said, brother, did you hear that Farrakhan the Messiah? He was like, what? I said, yeah, he's the Mahdi. I said, And I'm not making fun of this or nothing, but I was blown away because I've always seen Farrakhan in the 80s as a vanguard for the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and not necessarily one that would be caught up on titles and accolades. But as time went on through the 90s, it seemed like these accolades and these titles and these big people in big rooms seems to pop up everywhere. You know, shaking hands with big time grifters, whether it was Al Sharpton or whether it was somebody else that is notable. But it was always notable people that it seemed like the minister would get close to. And then one thing that really rocked me is every time something happened in hip hop, you know, the rappers would run to Farrakhan, or Farrakhan would take pictures with these rappers. And to me, it seemed like Farrakhan became more of a celebrity as opposed to a religious leader in the sense that he was in the 80s. In the 80s, he was a vanguard. In the 80s, he was a soldier. In the 80s, he was defending the teachings of Elijah Muhammad from the vantage point where I stand. But during the 2000s, it seems like it was a lot of photo ops. Now, I'm just telling you what my opinion of the landscape when I look down the road and I look. That's what it seemed like. You know, I seen him with pictures with Eminem, and then see pictures with Dr. Dre, see pictures with Rakim, which is notable, and all the other rappers, Busta Rhymes. I'm like, man, hold up. It seemed like every time you turn around, there was a photo op. And then I started seeing or hearing people calling him the Messiah. Now, one of the things that people may get mad about is that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is up in age right now. And I respect all of my elders. I respect all of our leaders. However, I decided to do this show because it's a topic of discussion. This is not meant to ridicule the minister. This is not to make the brothers and sisters in the NOI feel some type of way. This is something that is on social media, has been on social media, that some people may have addressed on smaller channels, some people may have not. But this is something that I want to address, and I want to address it with Sister Jamillah Muhammad. She was a member of the Nation of Islam at one point in time, and she's been on the show quite a few times. And every time she came to the show, she's always given a phenomenal perspective. So tonight, I wanted to get her perspective on the esoteric meaning of a Farrakhan. If you don't know where I'm going with this, like when something happens in the manifest, something that you can see, it's always an underlining story behind that you don't see, you know? And so I want to see what she has to say about the manifested destiny of Minister Louis Farrakhan, the manifested destiny of the NOI, Elijah Muhammad. Some of these deeper questions. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Press 7 if you understand what I'm saying. Not so much if the doctrine is right, wrong, true, or indifferent, but what is the universe pushing when we have encountered someone of the magnitude of a Farrakhan, and we could do the same thing about Prophet Noble Drew Ali too. You know what I'm saying? This is not excluding Prophet Noble Drew Ali, because there's always something behind the veil that is deeper than what we see before our face. And that's enough of that intro right there. But with that being said, my guest is in the building. Welcome to the show, sister. You are on the screen. You are on time. I see you got your pen in your hand. The pen is mightier than the sword, they say. Ikra. Taught man with a pen and all that good stuff. Sis, welcome to the show. So I want to get straight to it, because you don't need no introduction, because they know who you are. You always on fire, and you always straight to the point, and you don't bite your tongue. Sis, When you were
That's
a member of the Nation of Islam, were you into the science of the esoteric concepts of our spiritual journey in any way?
um no, not initially. I became later on, but not initially, no.
Okay, so now that you are years removed, and when I say remove, it's a lack, for the lack of a better term, just not being a member of the Nation of Islam, and you have grown some, you have acquired more knowledge, you have seen different levels of knowledge, and maybe even experienced different levels of knowledge. When you look at the Nation of Islam today, do you see a underlining story of a manifested destiny, if I could say it in another way? When you see the Nation of Islam, is there an esoteric uh, um, is there an esoteric essence to, let's deal with the term Messiah, that they're now calling Farrakhan a Messiah? Is there something
um
behind that?
I think for him, yes. For
Okay.
others, no. Okay. And the reason why I say for him is he knows what he's involved in. He knows why he's using this term. The individuals looking from the outside in, they're referring it back to the Bible, right? The Messiah, Jesus, and all that kind of stuff, because that's their limited knowledge. But he knows what he's saying, because he's speaking in what they call tongues. Okay.
Right.
Um, a little bit of tricknology there too, and I'm gonna say it, because it's one thing when you know what you're saying, but when you describe it, the other people don't know what you. They think you're referring to something else, but you're not correcting them on what you mean. But overall, what he's saying is, you know, Master Farah Muhammad, his work, and then Elijah Muhammad's, the Messiah, and then he's an extension of Elijah. So I'm not sure if he's saying that he is the Messiah or a Messiah. I feel like he's saying a Messiah only to kind of water it down so he won't seem so grandiose. You know what I'm saying? But either way, the answer would be no. It don't matter whether you saying a Messiah or the Messiah. It doesn't matter. Both the answers is no, you're not,
Run!
and we
Run!
gonna prove it tonight on him not being that. Now, let me tell you something. I was a Farrakhan, like, I studied this man's lectures. When I had conversations, I could bring it back up. I could break it down. I could tell you exactly what lecture he said certain things on. I was able to do that because I used to study him. So once I wasn't in the nation no more around like 2010, 2013. And one thing about me is that I listened to him. Like I really hung on to his words. And so when I did that, it was like, hold up, this is not adding up. Certain things are not adding up. And so that's when I decided to go deeper, because I wanted to prove to people that there is continuity with Elijah Muhammad's teachings and what Farrakhan's teaching, because, at the time, people were, like, he's this and he's that and he's the other. And I'm defending him like, nah, it is the same. And so I said, well, I don't want to be found in error. So let me go ahead and look deeper into this.
Hmm.
So several rabbit holes, okay, several rabbit holes. You're gonna go down them, okay. And so you have the exoteric, which most people, that's where their knowledge is right now, and that's just surface level knowledge, information, like literal belief, that kind of stuff. But then you have esoteric knowledge, and esoteric knowledge is more on the spiritual, much more deeper, like meaning, symbolism, synchronicity, all that. Okay. So in my opinion, the teachings is both.
Okay.
Okay. So the way the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught it, he taught it in an exoteric way. That's why the people that are holding on to this teaching, because that's still their level, they're still interpreting it as being literal. Okay,
Right.
so your series have proven that with all the people upset or blah blah blah, because they're looking at it on the surface. They're not digging deeper. And so the fact that they're not digging deeper, they don't see that at the end of the day, it is Moorish science. Like, it literally is. Okay. In order for you to know that, though, you have to understand what esotericism is. And you have to unfold a lot of things. I mean, I was just doing some research the other day, and I found out where he got the black man is God from in the Moorish science. I'm like, hold on, we talking about black matter here. We're not talking about, race and all that kind of stuff. And so, but if you're not studying, and if you're not inquisitive, and if you're not asking those questions into something that say that you believe in, you're not going to decode nothing. You're not going to layer it. On top of that, if you're illiterate, now remember, we got 85% people, at least that's the last statistic, that's functionally illiterate. Okay. And so a lot of people don't even have the skill level to even decode. And that's why the scriptures is not for your common people. The scriptures originally was for the initiates. Yeah. You was in a whole separate category, the adepts. You know what I mean? Like, your normal person is not going to understand stuff. And that's what we're dealing with now. And just for those that don't know what I'm saying, I'm talking about that 85, that 10, and that 5. Okay. Obviously, there's major adjustments today in 2026, but the principle is still there, right? So the point is, the masses are still looking at the exoteric part of Elijah Muhammad's teachings, right? That small percentage, and it's less than 5, the poor righteous teachers, that's less. It's like 1% that understand the esoteric part of his teachings, because even out of that 5%, most of them are 85. You feel what I'm saying? Right. So you could just keep, it's like creation, a ripple effect. You could just keep breaking it down into the smallest fraction, right? That's mathematics. So the bottom line is, if you not yourself like a person that knows how to just break down an algebraic expression, you're not breaking this down. You still on the surface.
Talk.
That's real talk right there. So as far as Farrakhan is concerned, Farrakhan, he has superseded a lot. Okay, so I want to take it all the way back.
Sis, we here for it, sis. I'm here for it, family. Put that thumbs up. Throw a 7 in the chat. Let the sister know that you're here for it. I'm here for it. Hoping that you're here for it. And if you're not here for it, we see you later. Come back on the next show, because it's about to go down and bring her all the way back up. Sis, talk to us. Let's go. I'm loving this. Let's go.
All right, so if we're focusing on that question, is he the Messiah? Is he a Messiah? Either way, the answer is no, right? So that's not, because, you're going to deal with people that say, he didn't say he's the Messiah. He said he's a Messiah. Okay, the answer is still no, okay? So now let's go and unpack that and look at the evidence that determines it. So based off of his own words is basically he's an extension of Elijah Muhammad, who he is calling the Messiah. We could start there. Okay, we can start there. Now, in order to be an extension of something, that means you have to match them, and you have to elongate what that person taught. So if Elijah Muhammad had a messianic mission, if you're an extension of the messianic, mission, it should match, it should line up, right? That's because right. You're an extension, you're bringing it further, and further in this case means you're explaining. Okay, so now let's go ahead and rewind as far as like what Elijah Muhammad said about Farrakhan. Let's start there. So what did Elijah Muhammad say about Farrakhan? Elijah Muhammad said he's his greatest preacher. He's one of his best preachers. The way he bring his teachings, he bring it like him, but he kept calling him a preacher. And so I used to go back and I'm like, why he keep calling this man a preacher? And see, I'm all about words. Okay. Now, granted, Elijah Muhammad, he used a lot of words interchangeably. Okay. But I think we slow on Elijah Muhammad. Okay, I think the fact that the narrative is that he went to the 4th grade, blah, blah, blah. People is trying to like make it like he didn't know no better type stuff. You know what I mean? But we got to be careful on who we put these labels on and the fact that we go with this narrative, because my study of Elijah Muhammad, oh, no. We dealing with something completely different from what the people are looking at, okay? Now, Elijah Muhammad, he has layers to him. Now, depending on what layer you want to focus on, so be it. But I'm focusing on a deeper layer to him. But when he kept calling Farrakhan a preacher, I'm like, why he keep calling this guy a preacher? So now I'm looking up the word preacher, and I'm like, there's a reason why he calling this man preacher. Like, he called him preacher more than he ever called him a teacher. He probably called him a teacher maybe once or twice, but mostly he's calling him a preacher. And so a preacher is usually one that kind of like is persuasive, charismatic. They get the people moving, move people into the belief, the acceptance, really just bringing them something. Okay. And so if you look at it, Elijah Muhammad had said that Farrakhan is, basically doing it like him. He's preaching his word like that, right? So in all actuality, Elijah Muhammad considered himself a preacher too at this stage. Okay. He wasn't, necessarily putting it out there about being a messenger, although he was called that, but he would always talk about himself as a preacher. I'm preaching today. I'm going to preach about this. I'm going to say this. Okay. So it's safe to say in that analysis that they're both preachers. Okay. And so at that time, Farrakhan would be an extension of Elijah being a preacher, right? And so the famous quote that the believers always like to use that says what put Farrakhan succeeded Elijah Muhammad is when Elijah Muhammad was on the radio. He had the radio show, right? The Muhammad Speaks radio show. And he gave this speech, and it's in Theology of Time. And he gave the speech about, Farrakhan being his greatest preacher, where he go, blah, 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 blah. Everybody know that one, right? Because that's the only quote they use to say that Farrakhan is the successor. Okay. Now, if you break it down, you clearly know that that's not him putting Farrakhan in his seat. Number one, he wasn't dead yet, and he didn't think he was going to be dead. You see how that go? And so it's not like he was predicting his death and he's like, this is the person that's going to sit in my seat. He literally was talking about the fact that Farrakhan, he couldn't reach a certain number of people, but the way Farrakhan preached, the way he preached, he reaches way more people than he could. And that's what he basically said. But he also said in that, and, and I'm going based off of memory, but he also said in that, is follow him as long, in parentheses, as long as he doesn't deviate from what I'm saying, or as long as he stay close to the teachings or whatever, right? And so they like to omit that little blurb, because that blurb is actually the bigger picture. Because today we can say that Farrakhan changed the teaching, like Paul, right? We can say that now. We can safely say that the teaching is changed, especially when you talk about Scientology, okay? But I'm going to put that to the side. The bottom line is he called him the preacher, but not a teacher. Now, if we're talking about extending an extension, Elijah Muhammad, for the most part, considered himself a preacher. Yes, he did consider himself messenger of Allah title, but as far as who he was, he considered himself a preacher. So if you're an extension of someone that considered themselves a preacher for the most part, you're not going to go into being a teacher. You're going to be an extension of a preacher. Now let's look at the evidence of Farrakhan being a preacher. Is he charismatic? Sure is. Yeah. Is he persuasive? Sure is. Does he talk about belief? Sure does. Does he talk about acceptance? Sure does. We got enough evidence to say he a preacher. As a matter of fact, he recently called himself a Baptist preacher. It was at the national something that they just had. He called himself a Baptist preacher. Okay. So now we have to stop there, because now we're saying, okay, this is a man that is known for his preaching. He's not known for his teaching. Okay. Now, what does a teacher do? Well, a teacher does what you do, Tahaka. You parse. You break stuff down. You ask questions why. Does Farrakhan do that?
Oh, you cooking.
I'm waiting. No, he don't explain it, because I used to leave lectures with questions. Now, I was an avid student under Farrakhan. Why am I leaving the lecture with questions? Now I got to go personally and I got to parse words and I got to figure this out and I got to do that. I shouldn't do that. I should leave having the answer. But if you a preacher, your flock is not leaving with answers. They're just leaving with feel good, inspiration. Oh, he did an awesome job. He did a good job. But then you ask, well, what did he say? Oh, he was teaching. But what did he say? I don't know, but he was teaching.
That's right. It's the same thing in the church, ain't it?
That part. But what it is, remember, we going back to functional illiteracy. The people were saying he's teaching because they don't know the difference between preaching and teaching.
Oh.
So if you ask his followers, is he teaching? They gonna say yeah, because they don't know the difference, and that's when you're dealing with functional illiterate people. Okay. And so I never felt like he was teaching me. Never. But I felt good when I left one of his lectures. That's just my personal experience. And I witnessed the same people. They fired up. Okay, now let's talk about the Million Man March, because this is one of my favorite subjects. I love talk about the Million Man March, Tahaka.
Hey, I'm here for it. I'm just listen. One thing about a great teacher, they are even greater students. And I'm your student tonight. Teach, sis. I ain't got no problem with it.
Let's talk about the Million Man March. Okay. The Million Man March was one of the greatest mobilization moves. Like, it was awesome. Okay. Some people say 1 million, 2 million, whatever. It was a lot of black men. That's great. That's awesome. Everyone knows that. That's not even up for debate. Okay. Now let's talk about what Sister Ava said on how the Million Man March came about. Okay. I was another avid student of Sister Ava. Okay. All her books. I know all her lectures. Okay. I know how she was such a great defender of Farrakhan. He would always pull her out when he had smoke. You know what I'm saying? And she would break it down. She was a beautiful sister. All right. So Sister Ava said, she gave like a story, and she basically said that, you know, they was talking and he mentioned something about him sitting with Elijah Muhammad during Martin Luther King's thing. And Elijah Muhammad mentioning, oh, that's a good work or whatever. So in his mind, he's saying, oh, he want me to do that. I don't know where he got it from, but in his mind, it's like he made it like Elijah Muhammad gave him permission to do something. And I might still be on the screen, so I'm going to keep talking. And so basically, I guess he came up with this idea, and, you know, she said he couldn't believe that. He said, like, you know, what am I talking about? 1 million? How am I going to get that many people, you know, on Washington or things of that nature? Bottom line, it was not something that he actually like meant to do. You know what I mean? So we could call it divine or whatever, but the bottom line, it was an idea, and the idea basically stemmed from, Martin Luther King, when Martin Luther King called them people to Washington. Okay. And so I don't know if I'm still on. Okay, I am. Okay. I don't see you, Taharka, but I'm still on. So basically, he wanted to duplicate what Martin Luther King did. Okay. He wanted to duplicate what King did. And so, you know, how was he able to do that? Do we talk about how he was able to do that? We don't talk about the logistics. We don't talk about the planning. We don't talk about that. We just say, oh, he must be such a divine person. He got 1 million or 2 million black people on Washington. Okay, let's talk about some of the logistics. During that time in 1995, you know, it was a big deal with like the HBCUs, the black colleges. Like, it was a lot of hype on that. right? The black colleges, they were known to mobilize. Okay. I mean, I can't even name the number of people that I knew personally that was part of the mobilization to get people. That's what Spike Lee's movie Get on the Bus was about. Okay. It was so many people outside the nation did such a wonderful work in getting, people there. They're not even recognized. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking about major organizations, smaller people just in the community. Like, this was a big deal. Why? Because like you said on the last show, social change. We were looking for social change. This was the height. We were just coming off crack era. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
On fire, politicians, like black people was trying to get busy. So the fact that this figure, Louis Farrakhan, and nobody even mentioned Elijah Muhammad in 1995. That's how everybody was on Farrakhan's heels. Like we didn't forget about Elijah, but we was like, this is Farrakhan thing. Like we was hyped. Yeah. Okay. So then when it happened, he got CNN coverage. How do you get CNN coverage? You the most hated black man in the world, according to him. But you get CNN. I think they even covered it on BBC. Yeah. You was on all the major networks. How does that happen? Well, the only thing I can say is Bobby Hemmett said it best. You gotta be down with the people in order to get that much coverage. It's not gonna happen if you don't. It's not gonna happen. You got your Steve Coakley. He's never got that coverage. Steve Coakley introduced us to the boule, the black elite, the gatekeepers. That's huge. That was CNN worthy, his lectures. But what did Steve Coakley do? He went into little hole in the boxes. Bobby Hemmett, same thing. He should have got national coverage for what he was kicking. You got Delbert Blair. Delbert Blair was on top. He was like a scholar. He didn't even get CNN coverage, okay? I could go on and on and on and on. Why was this man the only one that got national coverage, but you the most hated? Something is wrong with that picture. So the last time I was here, I said that sometimes you got to do things you might not initially want to do, but once you do it, you're going to keep doing it because it's paying off, okay? So we got something called controlled opposition. Yes. Okay, now hold
that thought right there for a second. I want to really underscore that the minister had made many of these lettered giant news networks even before the Million Man March. I want to underscore that he had been on a lot of these major networks with these interviews. And when you say controlled opposition, when you look back in hindsight, you look at some of these interviews, you look at how the minister would pick his words wisely when it comes to the white man, the devil, and things of that nature. Whenever he got on these major platforms, but I was doing a expose, just a personal one, to look at how many, because the point that you made is that I forget who you just named said it, but if you on these Bobby Hemmett, if you on these major platforms, most likely you rocking with the people, you rocking with them people. You know what I'm saying? And so I did an expose to see how many networks had covered not only him, but even Dr. Khaled, because Dr. Khaled was associated with him. Dr. Khaled by default get coverage too. And it seems like at some point in time, the networks was pushing, you know what I'm saying, was pushing this dissension, if you will. You know, it comes off as dissension or opposition, but when you looked at the Jesse Jackson, remember the Jesse Jackson? One of the biggest coverage that Farrakhan got is when he said, if you put your hand on Jesse. Jesse was running for president in the 80s. Anybody remember that? If you put your hand, and it made coverage everywhere. that
Yeah.
Farrakhan said, if you put your hand on Jesse, we're going to do this, that, and the third. And so I just wanted to underscore that, the minister had graced many screens leading up to the Million Man March. And it seems to me that because you're about to get into the conspiracy theory, if there is a conspiracy theory, it would appear that this is controlled opposition with promotion of the opposition.
For sure.
I yield the
That's
floor.
the deal. And it's nothing like a lot of people, I see it, a lot of people get really like uncomfortable with this conversation. But at the end of the day, it's part of rocking with the capitalistic society. You know what I'm saying? And so if you even take it back when he tells his story about when he first heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak, he judged him. He judged him like, this man can't even speak. I can do better than him. From the rip, 1955, that was the first impression. Not, wow, look at this awesome man. Wow, look at this great man. Wow, I look up to him. The first thing that he thought was, he can't even talk right. I could speak better than him. Okay, let's put a pin in that. Let's put a pin in that, okay? Because that was the first thinking when he heard Elijah Muhammad. First impression is always what we default to, okay? And so sometimes you can meet somebody and you could prejudge them and you could say, I ain't really. But then as you get to know them, you kind of like, all right, I'm going to give them a pass. But you're not really on them like that. Because your first thought was, I could do better. So now let's look at the sojourn, okay, in the nation, okay? Now, Farrakhan, he moved up quick. Now, me being in the nation, I only got the squad leader. You know what I mean? I did some principal detail on, one of the sisters, Mother of the Faithful and stuff, but that's because I had a nice car. But all I'm saying is, he moved up quick. And now people are going to say, well, things were different back then, and then. It don't matter. The bottom line is, he knew the power of networking, okay? And who was he close with? Who was his brother? Who was his mentor? Who was his all in all? Malcolm X.
I knew it was coming.
Okay. Now, this is what I always wondered. As many documentaries, as many movies, where Farrakhan at? He was supposed to be his right hand man. Shorty in Malcolm X in 92, Spike Lee was like, somebody said that he was actually really like Red Fox or whatever, because Malcolm X and Red Fox used to hang out, or that character was a reflection of Red Fox or whatever. But even when, he in the movie, he came into the nation, I'm looking for the character that's at least going to play Farrakhan. Now, initially, I thought it was that little young boy that came into the diner that was like, I want to be a Muslim. That wasn't him either. So I'm saying maybe Spike Lee couldn't get the rights to portray Farrakhan, but I'm kind of feeling like this is in 1992. This is even before the Million Man March.
I never looked at it like that. Yeah.
You're a whole public figure.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be portrayed in the movie?
Oh, man, break it down, sis.
When you were supposed to be his homie, like y'all was tight.
Yeah.
Where's your character in the movie?
Wasn't they in Boston together and then in New York together?
I don't know about Boston. Well, probably. I think it was. Yeah, it was Boston. Yeah, Boston. And yeah, exactly. So that just always stuck with me. Like documentaries never mentioned Farrakhan. Never mentioned Farrakhan.
Oh, you got me at the edge of my seat. Where we going with this? Talk, sis.
All right. So here's the thing. Every single time Farrakhan tells a story, there's never a witness. There's never a witness that says Farrakhan was tight with Malcolm X. Farrakhan was tight with Elijah. It's always from his like a private conversation. Okay, like no witnesses. And yeah, we could say, okay, like Jabril kind of, but yeah, not really, because then now he want to talk about Moses and Aaron. It's like, no, talk about what really happened, but you can't because you wasn't there either when these so-called private, intimate conversations took place between Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan. Well, let me tell you what my research showed. And I don't care what people say. How you know? My research, and I know what I know. According to my research, Elijah Muhammad didn't even like Farrakhan. Not like that.
Hold up, sis. Stop it. But I'm going with you. I'm gonna hear you out. I gotta hear you out. Let's go.
Yeah, because I can only go based on my personal research.
Right.
Now, people can dispute and say you wrong, you lying. I don't care. Okay, I know what I know. So he was not necessarily like the tightest one. And I'm going to give some evidence right now. Okay. Think about all the pictures we see with Malcolm and Elijah, just them two. Hundreds of archived pictures of Malcolm and Elijah. We know that Malcolm and Elijah were tight. We know that Elijah Muhammad looked at Malcolm as his son. We know that for the facts. Everybody know that to be the truth. Okay. Right. Hundreds of photos. You know how many photos there are with Farrakhan and Elijah, just them two?
I can't say, but I tell you what, I've never seen one with just them two, but I've seen one with him and Malcolm.
Okay, there you go. Okay. Every time you seen a picture of Farrakhan with Elijah, Malcolm was in it.
Yeah.
Or it was cropped. So, because the people, they cropped the picture, so they just want to show Farrakhan, but it's never like just them in the picture. It's always the glue, because Malcolm was, the connection to them. Okay. Which tells me, now I'm going to say this.
Sis, you're going to get me in trouble tonight. Now, I just was on the phone for the last 2 days with brothers from the nation, and we was having good conversations, and we be brothers, we be friends, and they respect that I'm giving this series and this presentation. But you about to mess it up for me, sis. But go on anyway. Go on. I get some calls tomorrow. So here's my thing.
Now, I'm a regular person, just like
I like that. I need you to pick. I'm sorry I cut your wisdom. Pick up where you left off. They in the picture together. He's the glue. Come on. You're gonna mess up my friendships. We was talking all day today. We were talking yesterday. I talked about 10 brothers from the nation. And you're gonna mess it up for me.
So here's my thing.
Look, I talked to George Allen today. He a bona fide FOI. I love that brother. You about to mess me and George relationship up, sis. Go on, mess it up.
And so my purpose is for people to think about these things, because here's the thing. That's just like you saying, yo, such and such, that's my homie. We go way back. I'm gonna be looking for evidence of that. And he stand on grand stages in front of thousands of people proclaiming him and Malcolm was so tight. But he was the main one bashing Malcolm when that whole thing went down. He was the number one person. Talk about Malcolm is worthy of death. And I'm confused. That was supposed to be your brother, your mentor. He was like a father figure. Like that was your man. So why you the main voice saying he worthy of death? Now I get it. If he was, rocking with Elijah more than Malcolm, that's cool. But the fact that that's your boy, you kind of should have been tight-lipped a little bit on that. Not the main one.
Yeah,
Not the main one. So that's a little suspect to me. Okay. And then let's talk about how Farrakhan talks about his relationship with Elijah Muhammad, because I'm leading up to the Messiah part. Okay, we got to take it back to bring it up. You see how that go? So we hoping that it ain't too many functionally literate folks in the building, because you got to follow the conversation. Okay, so now let's talk about what Farrakhan says about him and Elijah Muhammad relationship. Now, as long as I've been in the nation, I told you 16 non-consecutive years. Man, when he used to talk about their relationship, he made it like, Elijah was like blowing him up, calling him like, I'm gonna need you to come to the palace. Da, 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 da. I mean, let me tell you what he said during the Islamic conference. I feel like this was the Islamic conference. He said him and Elijah Muhammad had a love affair.
No, he didn't.
He said they had it was like in a love affair. He was using a metaphor. All right. Yeah, okay. It was like a love affair. And Elijah Muhammad impregnated him with the word.
Oh my goodness. He did not use that type of metaphor.
I'm just saying.
With the impregnated doctrine. With the impregnable doctrine. That's a term too. Yeah.
Basically, what that metaphor say is they was tight.
Yeah. We're not gonna read into it but yeah, they was tight.
But he was describing it like they was tight. That's what that means.
Right.
Bottom line is, if you talk to people that know, if you do your research, that's not the truth. They wasn't that tight. In fact, Elijah Muhammad put brothers around Farrakhan to make sure he doesn't change the teaching, because the first meeting or the first dinner Elijah Muhammad, and this is in the final call, I think Jabril did like the Traveler series or something. He had said the first meeting that Elijah Muhammad or Farrakhan sat at the table, Farrakhan kept saying how he's Peter in the Bible, because Elijah Muhammad had a way. He always used the scriptures to describe people, right? And so he said, I think Farrakhan was like, I'm Peter. And then Elijah Muhammad was like, nah, you Paul. And he stuck with that. You know what I mean? And so if you know anything about Paul in the Bible, we know Paul's conversation, right? And so what's that about? So what I'm saying is, we have all this evidence that proves that, Farrakhan he exaggerated the relationships. Okay. He exaggerated the relationship that he had with Elijah Muhammad. I'm not really sure if the relationship he had with Malcolm X was all like that, considering the way he was the top, like, bring him down person. So that's questionable. But as far as his relationship with Elijah Muhammad, not so much. Okay. When Elijah Muhammad called for the other brothers or the captain in New York City, he didn't want to speak to Farrakhan. And Farrakhan was like, he want to speak to me? He want to speak to me? No, he don't want to speak to you. He want to speak to the captain in New York. I think it was like Yusuf Shah, some bull like that. So the bottom line is, that was, how like you always wanted to have like a daddy? Listen, this is from Farrakhan's mouth. This was on a pathology of hypocrisy. He was talking about how he didn't have a father. You know what I'm saying? Or, he had a stepdaddy, but I don't know. He was just making it like he had no father in his life. We know he had the stepdad, the Jamaican boy, Percival. Now, I don't know what their relationship was, because he don't never really talk about that, but based off of archive articles and stuff, we know that he had a Jamaican stepdaddy, right? But his biological father, was the Portuguese white boy that wasn't in his life, right? It's kind of like when you wish you just had your own dad, your own biological father, and then you meet somebody and you feel like he's a father figure, but he just ain't really rocking with you like that. So you trying to prove yourself to him, and he said some things like this over the course of his lectures. Like he said that he felt like he always had to prove himself. So even when Elijah Muhammad would say something, he said, I never really understood what he said, but we just said, yes, dear holy apostle. Like he didn't question him or nothing, but it was kind of like he was just wanting him to accept him. And he even said Elijah Muhammad just had a way, first you would think he really rocking with you, and then it'd be like, I'm not really sure if he's feeling me like that. he just had his way, kind of like a dad is with their children sometimes. First is like, come on, let's go out to ice cream and stuff. And then the next day is like, no, I can't play with you because I'm doing something. You know what I'm saying? So he kind of described that type of relationship. So to me, it was like he just wanted to be accepted. And Farrakhan goes into like his low self-esteem. He always talks about how, he was really insecure and stuff like that. So this is not like new information I'm bringing, but what I'm doing, I'm putting it together to paint the picture. Like when he talks about his relationship with Elijah Muhammad, he exaggerates because I feel like it's what he wanted to be to Elijah. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And still not knowing, but he wanted to be that, but he really wasn't. And so now we get into it. So I had to do that.
Yeah, okay. Lay it out.
So now we talking about in 1975 when Elijah Muhammad passes away. He transitioned. His body physically dies. He's not on a mother plane. He's not, okay, because that's part of the story. But let me back up. Okay. So now Farrakhan is like, he's not here no more, Elijah Muhammad. So now he can tell stories. He can say like, yeah, we was this type. We had this private conversation, because every time he says anything about Elijah Muhammad putting him in his seat, it's always a private conversation he had with Elijah. It's, people always was around Elijah Muhammad. There was always somebody around Elijah Muhammad. So why are you talking about all these private conversations? You wasn't over in Chicago all the time and stuff like that. Like, like he always tried to make it like it was something between me and him, like nobody else know. It's just what we talked about. You know what I'm saying? But because nobody can verify, so right. Naturally people are going to say, well, he said it, so I guess he said it.
Let me chime in for a second, sis.
Yeah, you good.
I've been doing deep research since I've been covering this, and I've been revisiting a lot of things. And one thing that I noticed is it seems to me that Elijah Muhammad did a lot of that with Master Farad Muhammad. It seems to me that when I look at some of the things where Elijah Muhammad would say, I was told by Master Farad Muhammad, along the person of Master Farad Muhammad, A, B, C, and D. He told me da-da-da-da-da. He told me da-da-da-da. I'll give you an example. When we look at the message to the black man, and I have covered the almanac, I covered the almanac, mm-hmm. and in the message to the black man, Elijah Muhammad emphatically says that Master Farad Muhammad taught the distance of this and taught the distance of that, and then I show in the actual facts that they come out the almanac. Elijah Muhammad is saying that he said he teaching mm-hmm. this, and he used the Bible to verify that. But you cannot find Master Farad Muhammad saying that he charted the skies and that he did this, he did that. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So mm-hmm. Master Farad Muhammad, he could have just got the lessons out there, named them actual facts, and then down the line, Elijah Muhammad says he taught us the distance of the earth. He taught us, and he may never told us his source or nothing like that. But I do notice that with Elijah Muhammad, to my point, that Elijah Muhammad does attribute a lot of things to Master Farad Muhammad, but no one can verify if any of those things that he attributes to him is actually true.
Right.
And we just got to take Elijah Muhammad's word for it.
You got to take his word for it.
And so that's the same thing I see what you're saying about the minister, that we just got to take his word for it.
Yeah, take his word for it, because he's already cultivated the people to, believe in him. Right. You know what I mean? And so the question is, well, why would he lie? Well, what's the other question? Why wouldn't he lie? You see, like, if you're going to ask why would he lie, then let's answer the other question too. You understand? Why wouldn't he lie? Now, I can answer why wouldn't he lie. I could say because it doesn't fit the narrative if he told the truth. Simple, easy, done, answered. It does not fit the narrative. It has to fit the narrative into why he is in that seat. Okay, now let's go here. So I left off talking about the false relationship or the over exaggerated. Okay, I'm I'm a soothe some of the believers and say he exaggerated the relationship. Okay, he could have had a relationship with him, but I think he just he over exaggerated, or he just lied. Okay, you choose whichever you want. Bottom line, it ain't the truth. Okay, right. It's not. He's not telling it how it really was. Now, in his mind, yeah. You know, because a lot of times we see what we want to see, or we think things that we want to think. So, okay, you know, in his mind, they was tight. But for real, no, they wasn't. Okay, and the evidence proves that they wasn't. Why? Because again, just by something simple as pictures, how come you don't got a picture just you and him together? Even Elijah Muhammad is in pictures with Muhammad Ali. Hundreds. But you, his top boy, you the one he gonna choose to sit in his seat. How he knew he was gonna die? Mm. How did he pick a successor not even knowing he was gonna die? Mm. You only choose your successor when you know you gonna die, or when you retired, or whatever. Okay. In Theology of Time, Elijah Muhammad said, you know, don't believe them when they say that I'm sick, or like the people around him. He alluded to, like, you know, they're gonna say that I'm sick, you know, but I'm fine. You know, that's why I'm able to sit up here or whatever and talk to y'all. So no, he didn't know that he was gonna die. So why would he appoint a successor? Okay,
but wouldn't it be fair to say that he did? Wasn't he? Now I could be wrong, and I looked at the chat and it just dawned on me. Wasn't he the spokesman during the life of Elijah though?
Right. So once Malcolm X got murdered, Farrakhan, you know, he became the national representative.
Okay.
But in a nation, that doesn't, you don't move up like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I got you. So just because he was his national representative didn't make him, you know,
the successor. I get you. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so, but even if you look at it, even just on that level, if that was the case, he would have moved right in and Wallace would have been out. You know what I mean? And that's a whole nother thing, right? That's a whole nother thing. But the bottom line is he wasn't appointed. Okay. Right. Now let's go back to the Messiah conversation. Absolutely. Because this ties into it. So we're clear that he didn't succeed Elijah Muhammad, because Elijah Muhammad in the interview said that I cannot appoint a successor because Allah appointed, like, I'm not Allah. Only Allah could do that. And he said, after me, no, there's God. Like, nah, ain't nobody, nobody. And it wouldn't be Farrakhan, because that speech was about him being a preacher on the radio, not to lead the nation. It was specifically for the radio, because they weren't getting as many listeners, and Farrakhan was bringing the listeners in. So, like, they love to take it out of context. Like, stop doing that. We know that he said that on the strength of Muhammad Speaks, the radio show. Okay, we go over this all the time. It's so ridiculous how often we got to go over this for the functionally illiterate people to understand that conversation had everything to do with getting the people to listen to the radio show. It had nothing to do with Farrakhan sitting in Elijah Muhammad's seat, because according to Elijah Muhammad, after him comes God. That's it. Okay?
That's now, right.
You cannot be an extension of someone that didn't say you are the extension of me. Okay? Now, in their private, secret conversations that Farrakhan says, he might have said that to him, but we can't verify that. Okay? So the fact that we can't verify that, now we're here. Okay. Now let's go to a YouTube channel. I think you had this brother on your show one time. He's the host of Barbershop Conversations.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So there's a video with this brother. In the nation, his name was Brother Tracy, but now he's Albi Abdullah. Okay. So Albi he was a close friend of Farrakhan's. Okay. And so Albi talks about him and Farrakhan during the times of the whole Wallace debacle. Okay. And so basically Albi says, Farrakhan was planning on leaving Wallace. You know what I'm saying? According to Albi, he didn't say nothing like, I'm leaving because I can't rock with what he's saying. I don't believe. No, according to Albi, Farrakhan had secret meetings with bankers and big people that had money, and he was on his way to establish what we call the Nation of Islam today. Okay. He also said that Albie also said, he was like, hold on, what you mean you about to, rebuild the nation or whatever? Wallace, he know way more than you, much more knowledgeable than you. Farrakhan agreed he is. But he don't got what I got. Them bankers, the money people. That was what Albie Abdullah said on Barbershop Conversations. And he was tight with him. They know him as Brother Tracy back in the day. Okay, so now we're getting into divinity. Because if you already plotting to move around and do something different, and you having these smoke-filled meetings with bankers and big people, because Farrakhan met a lot of people under Wallace. Okay, he traveled with Wallace overseas. As a matter of fact, that's probably how he met Muammar Gaddafi, through Wallace. Like, he had a lot of connections being up under Wallace. You know what I'm saying? Like, he made a lot of connections, like international connections and things like that. And he used those same people to build, do with the rebuild or whatever, right? And so he was already calculating it. Divinity is, it fell on my lap and now I gotta take it. You see how that go? It's not plotting. It's not premeditated, But let's go back to 1955. I could do that better. Look, keep that in mind. I could do it better. So now he starts to rebuild. Some people would say he built from scratch. I'm going to say he had people that hooked him up with some money. Okay. Yeah. And he connected with the right people. Okay. The biggest move he made was endorsing Jesse Jackson. That was a power move. And out of that came Power, the products. And then that failed. But then I digress. All I'm saying is it was a calculated move. So it's not divine. It wasn't a divine revelation based off of what Jabril said about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being physically alive, or is it possible? See, I love the word salad. The book says, go ahead. Go ahead.
It seems as though not only in our community, but in a lot of community where those who want to take a position of religious leadership, they create a story. So when it brings to mind when you say that Elijah Muhammad says that Farrakhan was like Paul. And if anybody know the story, that Paul was actually Saul. And in order for him to gain popularity amongst the Christians, he said he was on the road to Damascus, and he creates this story where he sees Jesus in the sky, and then Jesus say, "Why thou persecutest me?" and kick us among the pricks. And boom, he get this revelation. All of a sudden, Saul becomes Paul. Now he doesn't fight him, he joins him. You know what I'm saying? And now he becomes the biggest innovator of Christian thought, even superseding Jesus for all intents and purposes, because many people follow Paul instead of following Jesus, even from the Bible perspective.
Paulism. Yeah. That's the swap.
Yeah. So
that's the destiny swap.
Yeah. So when you say something like that, it makes a lot of sense. And then even that happens with Constantine too. Constantine, everybody have these revelations, you know what I'm saying? Constantine says that while he was on the road and he was killing Christians, he sees this cross, and he said, "By this sign you shall conquer." And then they say, okay, he becomes a Christian now, and now they begin to spread Christianity across North Africa all the way towards Turkey and all that. But everybody got a story, it seems. In fact, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, when a guy wanted to be the resurrected Prophet or reincarnated Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he claimed that he was Prophet Noble Drew Ali's chauffeur. He claimed while he was working on Prophet Noble Drew Ali's car, this is after the death of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the car or the jack falls on him, a star and a crescent appears in his eye, and he says that was the revelation that he's Prophet Noble Drew Ali and reincarnated. So to your point, it seems to me that this followed the same line and scenario, that there's this fabulous story that I have this awakening. Somebody put me on point to this awakening. However this awakening happening, and now I'm moving forward because I've been blessed, touched to move forward under this auspice of this leadership. It happens all the time.
You call it the grift script. That's the blueprint for the grift. Okay? It's like somebody wrote a book or something because they all do it. It's weird. Okay? So it wasn't divinity that, you know, made him decide to, you know, rebuild, right? It was back in 1955. I can do that better. Okay? Keep a pin there. Okay? Because we always gonna go back to I can do that better. Okay? So now he starts to rebuild, and you know, he makes all these great connections, you know, in order for it to happen. Okay, rightfully so. Okay. And from the very beginning, it was established like a business, okay, like a corporate structure, Final Call Inc., okay, DBA, Nation of Islam, from the jump, okay? You don't just decide to rebuild something that has to do with economics and don't think about what happened when Elijah Muhammad died. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was calculated. So the Final Call Inc. was the media machine, right? And you got your paper boys that sell the paper. That's your employees. Okay, let's break it down, right? They got to buy it up front, and then he get a percentage. That's how it worked. Okay? Now, whether you sell them or not, you still got to pay that. You still got that paper bill. Let's talk, brothers. FOI, you got that paper bill. All them brothers got all them papers in they trunk. You still paying. You got a bill. And you going to get an invoice for that bill too. And you're going to be looking crazy if you don't pay your paper bill. Okay? So you're an employee of the Final Call Inc. FOI, y'all know that, right? We're clear. Okay, we're clear. Okay.
You just gonna get me in all types of trouble tonight.
I'm working my way up. I thought
you were saying I'm working on it, Grand Sheik. You gonna get me in all types of trouble. I'm working on it, Grand Sheik.
You gotta understand. This is literally like an investigative. Like, I love this. This is like investigation,
and I'm here for it. That's why I'm quiet.
Okay. So now he starts to rebuild and he's recruiting. Okay. But the caveat is Elijah Muhammad is physically alive. Okay. And the story is he was a hypocrite for 3 years. I'm just kind of doing a summary that he gave, Pathology of Hypocrisy. That was like a 2-part, 4-part series. That was a lot. Okay. I watched all 4 of them like multiple times. I think it was 3 or 4. But anyways, so he turned hypocrite. He's in a hotel room. You know, he's in Cuba and smoking cigars and all full back to a Negro, according to his conversation. Okay. Jabril comes in there and has a conversation with him. And I don't know if I can't remember. He was saying they was going back to, like, you know, something about there was a mole on, you know, Elijah Muhammad's face, and it wasn't really him that died.
Yeah, it says that there was a mole on his face, and someone was in the hospital room when the baby plane came and picked up Elijah and took him to the mother plane. Some to that effect.
Okay. Now, if we go back to Lance Shabazz's book, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, My Something with the Nation of Islam, Lance Shabazz. Are you familiar with Lance Shabazz?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So he actually has a letter in the book from the mortician. Okay. So in that book, the mortician specifically says that, very detailed, how they wrapped Elijah Muhammad's body up because they didn't want to make a spectacle. They wrapped him up in a sheet, you know, and then instead of them bringing a hearse, they brought like a station wagon because they didn't want to make a spectacle. And it was him and a couple of other people. So I don't know about any planes in the window and all that. But the mortician, you know, like
now that's one of the nation stories that the baby plane came and picked him up. For real. Your brothers in the nation know that's the story. That believe he's still alive.
They took him out the back. Yeah. Okay, wrapped his body up.
George Jetson. Y'all know the Jetson got a new movie coming out soon. And he had one of them little baby Jetson planes that Elroy and them drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So The mortician said that, and on top of that, there's another report in there because I feel like Lance Shabazz was part of that. I think that's what he said. There's also in there like the report that says that the only immediate family viewed the body. So it's my recollection that Farrakhan wasn't immediate family. In fact, Elijah Muhammad never even like was calling him like, come over to the house and have some dinner with me. So yeah, how would he know that mold conversation or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, doesn't make sense to me. And he would only see it if he was like at the funeral home, right? When they were preparing Elijah Muhammad's body for the janaza. So if only the immediate family was there and they named like the mayor or something, because you know when somebody of that stature dies, the city got to verify it, right? So I think like the mayor was there, a judge or something like that, I guess, to write it up that, you know, he transitioned or whatever. But no, Farrakhan was not there to see that there was a missing mole and then the whole dental record thing. He was just talking like, you know, you can't get access to the dental records. How you going to put it out there? You know, let's get the dental records and find out. That's that preacher talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you know, you can't even get access to the dental records. So how you even going to put that out there?
And
you don't have authority.
And he also made a statement that if we dig up the body and find and see the body, and if it's Malcolm, I mean, if it's Elijah Muhammad, he would never teach again. But we know nobody's going to excavate. You know what it take to excavate a body?
Well, actually, Wallace did. He did. He took it. They did. They dug it back up, but not the body.
But for Farrakhan?
Right. No.
That's what
that was... Okay, yeah. Farrakhan had nothing to do with that part. Yeah. Wallace did that because he said, you know, he didn't want people to grave rob. Okay. Right. And so now this is my personal testimony, and I seen it with my own eyes. I don't know if that was actually the casket, but according to what's in Lance Shabazz's book, Wallace had the casket put in back of Mosque Mariam in Chicago. Okay. I seen it for my own eyes. I was at my first Savior's Day in like 97 or something, and we were visiting different like Salam, Mosque Mariam or whatever. And it was me and a sister, and we went into Mosque Mariam, and no one was there. And we was calling like, you know, Assalamu alaikum, like nobody was there. So we went in on the stage, and we looking around, and we opened up a curtain, and there was a tomb. I don't know what it was. It had like Elijah's story on it. It was weird. I don't know what it was. But then I read Wesley Muhammad's book, and it was an article about Jesus and Jesus having some kind of shrines, and it described similar to what it looked like in back of Mosque Mariam. It was like mirrors. So you didn't know exact, you know how like when you go into a mirror house, you don't know what's the real thing, but you see images. That's what I seen. So in Wesley's article about, I think it was like people had to pay to go see Jesus or something. He described the same thing. It was weird. Like he described the same like room with the mirrors. It was strange. But anyways, bottom line is I don't know if Elijah Muhammad's body was in that, but I seen it.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So could it just be a shrine to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and maybe not his body there? Because, you know, some people do make these elaborate shrines for those who has transitioned.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that there was a body in there, but I'm just saying it's just odd that, you know, Lance Shabazz had that conversation about Wallace digging it up and putting it in back of Mosque Mariam. And then in 97, I see the same thing that was described in Lance Shabazz. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what was in there.
Right,
I'm just saying he dug the body up that was in the casket, buried in the casket. Bottom line is, Jabril says, is it possible? See, this is what I'm talking about. Is it possible that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive? Okay. Does anyone want to answer the question? No one answered the question. The answer would be no, it's not possible. Okay, but no one wants to answer the question. Everyone wants to say he is. Well, okay, let's look at the evidence. Crickets. I can't hear nothing. Right. Do we have evidence that somebody died and actually came back as, that's only on the movies like zombies, right? According to Elijah Muhammad, when you die, you dead, you gone, you don't come back. That's what he said. So we can go ahead and say clone, blah, blah, blah. We could do all that if we want. Now the question is, if Elijah Muhammad is still alive, just like you presented those wives on the stage, Farrakhan, why didn't you pull Elijah up there and he said, yeah, these are my wives?
Oh man, you just won't stop.
It was about him. It was about Elijah. And he brought them women and they verified. But if he alive, why didn't you have him say it? That would have killed that whole conversation. I'm still working my way up. I'm just saying.
I'm here for it.
Why aren't we asking these questions? He would have verified everything. That whole Malcolm X scandal thing would have been over. It would have been squashed. It would have been kumbaya with the Shabazz family, with the Farrakhan, and we would have done. You crazy.
I'm scared.
You know, right. So you have a whole series lecture about Elijah Muhammad trying to clean up the mess, and you just made it worse. But it would have been better if you brought Elijah Muhammad on stage and he would have said, yep, that's my wife, that's my wife, that's my wife, that's my wife. It would have been better if you did that.
Thank you, Eco Cypher.
Okay. So no evidence that the man rose from the dead. No evidence. Okay. Well, let's talk about 1985 when he had his vision. Because here's the Griff script. Okay. Now, recently we heard grifters talk about aliens and abductions and la. Okay. Recently. Okay. Every grifter will have an alien story. Because there's a whole agenda on UFOlogy, okay? Farrakhan, his was a UFO story, okay? All he did was substitute stuff out, okay? So this is what got me. Now, I would have been rocking with him a little bit if what he said, Elijah said, had something to do with the liberation of black people. Okay? I would have been rocking with him. So here's my thing. I'm not denying he had a vision. No one can deny that. Although he later said he had witnesses. So now it's like, but was it a vision or did it really happen? Because he had Mother Tynetta and somebody else say, yup, we seen him go up in the wheel. So I wasn't really clear on that. It kind of changed over the years. But the original conversation, the original story was he had a vision. He was on the wheel. It was a scroll. He didn't see Elijah, but he heard his voice. So, but that story is actually supposed to prove that Elijah Muhammad is still physically alive on a wheel. Am I right? Ain't that the story that verifies that?
Yeah.
But he didn't see him. How was that verified that he's still physically alive on the wheel? He did not see him. He heard his voice. So how does that prove that he's physically alive? So we still can't prove he's physically alive. And how old would Elijah Muhammad be? He was 77. That's a whole Masonic conversation too. But he was 77, died on February 25th. Woo, that's some Mason stuff right there with them numbers. Come on. Well, supposedly Elijah Muhammad is guiding Farrakhan. This is the next stage, okay? So he had the vision, which is supposed to have solidified the physical alive story. Didn't see him, but heard a voice, and the verse said, Reagan is going to do this with some war, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Thank you, King Moab.
I don't get it. What does Reagan and the war or something got to do with the liberation of black people? I still don't know. Like I don't know how that went together. Like, do you know, Taka? How that go together?
All I know is Reagan bought the Reaganomics era, and people got big money off of crack. And
Because if anything, black folks they benefited under the D boys benefited off of Reagan.
Yeah, that's the only part I know about Reagan and the Contra scam, but not.
I'm just saying. So yeah, I'm not understanding that. To me, that was just weak.
Little Minister, don't get mad. Don't you dare get mad. Let the sister finish. All right, carry on, sis. I talked to the Little Minister.
Okay. But Little Minister ain't a fan of Farrakhan. So but anyway.
Yeah, but he lives by the rule, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'm not an enemy of anybody. We just teaching.
We ain't talking about the Little Minister right now, though. All right. I know the tea be crazy, but anyways, so now we trying to verify the
hold up, sis. You got some tea on the Little Minister? Look, ain't nobody listening between me and you. Look, I got everything on mute. You got some tea on the minister?
Hella tea on the Little.
You got some tea on the Little Minister? All right. Let's get back on the show. They didn't hear you.
Sorry.
No, they didn't hear you. They didn't hear you. Family. All right, we back now. I just had to say something to the sister. We back now. Carry on, sis.
Okay, so now the verification that he's physically alive is through the vision. Okay, that it didn't match. Like, yeah, okay, but people still thinking that that verifies, that solidifies that. So they still believe in it. Okay. So now we're going to talk about, the Million Man March. We're going to revisit that again. And the reason why we're going to revisit that,
I am not a scholar.
That was an opportunity to bring Elijah Muhammad on stage. And you know why that was an opportunity? Because all of America was watching, and the Muslim program specifically says we're going to bring this program to Congress.
Yep.
So why didn't you bring Elijah Muhammad out then and said, look, we did it. Perfect opportunity. Another missed opportunity. Why we keep missing that was literally the only opportunity that was necessary. Everything literally shut down. And I'm sorry, guys, in the Nation of Islam, everything shut down because he got a permit for everything to shut down. Nobody ran away. Nobody took vacation. Nobody was scared. He specifically got the paperwork that said that was the conversation. Okay. It was all established. He had to get a lot of things in writing and blah, blah, blah. It wasn't that they were scared of him and all, they wasn't scared of nobody. They allowed it to happen. Of course, he couldn't have did it without permission. He had to have permission. He didn't shut down Washington. I don't know why people be making stories up. Everybody know if you have a big march or mobilize, you need permits. Exactly. Okay.
And that's the thing, man. It's like, why do our people create these embellished stories when it's like you have to be really, to fall for this stuff, you have to be ignorant and you have to be really out of the loop and not know how these things work. I remember when I was covering Grandmaster Jay, and he was doing these marches and getting people to come out their houses and out the woods with their guns. And I look up, I do the research. I said, man, this look like a setup just to get people information and get facial recognition and all that. And I go look it up. Every march that he had, that he was talking about fighting back, he had permits and police bands on his arms. I said, oh, man. We shut down Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to tear this place up. And you got police bands on your arms and permits filed with the city and got everybody coming out like there's a revolution about to happen.
But here's the messed up part. Let's look at it differently. Now, we talking about esoteric right now, right? We talking about esoteric. Okay, let's talk about some esotericism. Between 1 to 2 million black men mobilize in front of Congress. Do you not understand that was a perfect time to take all those 1 to 2 million men out, and there would be no new generation now? Or they could have just sprayed the air with something, and now you got all these babies with sickle cell anemia. I'm just saying, it could have been a possibility. I'm not really sure. But did we ever think about that? The shepherd brought the sheep to be slaughtered. Did we ever think about that? Now, John Henry Clark talks about it being a ritual. John Henry Clark talks about the Million Man March with Farrakhan's initiation into the big boy club.
Yeah, I can see that. I always thought that.
But let's look at the evidence now. How it could have been. Okay, it could have been. Now let's unpack that. Okay. The Million Man March, the whole point was the social justice thing, right? Okay. Now, I used to work for a lot of nonprofits. I used to be on in the meetings for strategic planning and things like that. Whenever you're mobilizing, you always have strategic planning meetings, right? Because there's a lot of logistics that goes into that. Okay. I used to do crowd control with the nation as well. So I'm pretty versed in the logistics. I mean, not like the major stuff, but, if I was doing crowd control, like I knew, like how it's set up. You know what I'm saying? So anytime you're mobilizing like that, you have to have a strategic plan in place. The fact that he was working with so many different organizations, they helped him with that strategic plan. Okay. So the strategic plan also has something called retention. Okay. You don't mobilize like that, and then you don't have retention in place. And retention is basically sticking around to see the fruits of your labor. Okay. So the whole objective was to bring 1 to 2 million men there, convince them that they need to go home and build and do blah, 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 whatever it may be. Okay. I'm not saying none of that did happen. What I'm saying is we need the report though, because you need to measure the success of your 5-hour conversation. So my thing is, why aren't you measuring the success of your 5-hour conversation? This was an historical event. We want this to go in somebody's history books. Now, it's going to get a page in somebody's history book, but there's no retention. So the conversation is what came out of that. You know what came out of the Million Man March? Farrakhan's World Friendship Tour. Immediately after the Million Man March, Farrakhan went and he traveled the world. Well, really what he did he really travel the world though? Because from what I saw, he was mainly in the Middle East. Now, why would he be mainly in the Middle East? The Million Man March had nothing to do with nobody in the Middle East. Well, let's go back to what John Henry Clark said. We are talking about esotericism, right? Aren't we talking about that right now? Okay. So let's go back to what John Henry Clark said about it being an initiation. Okay. So whenever you do something, okay, and I'm just talking, this is all BS. You don't got to listen to me because I'm nobody. But all I'm saying is, whenever you go do an initiation and you do what you said you was going to do, you got to get your reward. Okay. You got to get rewarded. So now we need to go back to, why was he over in the Middle East so long? You didn't go around the world. You just literally was traveling in the Middle East. Okay. So remember what I said earlier about when Farrakhan was with Wallace, he made a lot of friends, specifically in the Middle East, because that's where Wallace studied and things of that nature. And obviously it would make sense because Wallace was bringing the Sunni stuff over here or whatever, right? So that makes perfect sense, right? 1 and 1 equals 2, right? So now you over in the Middle East and you hanging out with sheikhs and all this stuff. What that got to do with the Million Man March? On top of that, your conversation ain't even about the Million Man March. You talking about some other stuff that ain't had nothing to do with 1 to 2 million black people. And now you talking about you making friends all over the world for who? For black people? Why we need to be their friends? For what? Like, it don't match. But if you talk about esotericism, now it makes perfect sense. So according to John Henry Clark, the initiation went down and he went and he got rewarded from his people. The same people that he met through Wallace over in the Middle East. Now, who those people are? I don't know. Right. Collect. Okay. Then you come back. What happens when Farrakhan comes back? Everybody waiting on him. Where the money go? Remember that?
I remember. And they started showing the pictures of those big boxes floating through the sky, through the crowds, all the dollars. Yeah, I remember.
1 to 2 million people. If you get $1 from each, how much money you got?
You already know.
You understand. And then you go and do a world friendship tour. How was you able to do the world friendship tour? Because to my recollection, in the 90s, the nation was in financial ruin. Like bankrupt, lawsuits.
And let me add this too.
I'm just saying.
When you can bring 1 million, 2 million, however million to a concentrated area, you are literally building an economy for the same one that you call the devil. From every hotel.
That's it.
From every bus. From the gas that runs the bus. From the food that must be purchased. From everything, condiments, toiletries. For 1 million plus or 2 million people concentrated in one area, you have sustained an whole economy. You built a whole economy in one day. Now you mean tell me that the powers that be don't understand? You know when Baltimore Inner Harbor was constructed by William Donald Schaefer, it was constructed for the express purpose to bring in tourism, because when people come in, they bring their money with them. So they bring outside money to the inner workings of another city, government, etc. And that's just the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. Now, at one time, you're not going to have one-shot deal where 1 million people would flock to anywhere at one time on one day. When you have something like 1 million, and some people claim 2 million people flock to one place at one time, do you know how much advertisement that take? Do you know how much radio, and we didn't have the internet, how much word of mouth, how much getting this word out to get that many people mobilized and to travel, the money that it would take to pull that off? So not only did I look at it as the minister walked into another level of friendships and walks in all walks of life, but he also did Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas a major favor. A major favor.
And if you look at it, if you know anything about how the United States of America is set up, Washington, D.C. is the corporation.
Absolutely.
Okay? So you just put a whole lot of black dollars in the corporation's pocket.
The white man, the devil, though.
That's it. Don't make sense. And then you go to the Middle East and you even extended the trip. Nothing about black people. Nothing about the Million Man March. The Million Man March was a mere memory. It was just a revival, just like his career, a 60-year revival from a preacher.
Oh, you gonna get me in trouble.
From a preacher. Because I can do it better. Right? So now we're working our way to the Messiah, the initial question. All right. So I just laid out a bunch of evidence that is it missionary work or is it messianic work? Okay. Do we know the difference? So a Messiah is nearly one that is anointed. Just if we just want to pull it out there. Okay. Now, if a person is anointed, do they say they anointed? Is that usually how that works? Usually somebody anoints them. Right?
Absolutely.
Now we can say, yeah, he is the Messiah or a Messiah because the people anointed him.
Right.
So now the question is, what is he saying? He's saying he's a Messiah because Elijah Muhammad anointed him. Essentially, that's what he's saying. Okay. But does the evidence prove Elijah Muhammad anointed him? That will be a no, a hard no. So who anointed this man to be the Messiah? Who anointed him? And that's the new question.
No, so
we could go down several routes.
Is that the running answer, that Elijah Muhammad anointed or appointed him as the Messiah? Is that the real answer?
Right, because his explanation is he's an extension of Elijah's messianic work. So basically he's saying because Elijah Muhammad is the Messiah, then that makes me a Messiah because I'm doing his work.
Okay, I got it.
But the evidence shows you not. Why do we know that he's not? What was it? All right, now we got to define what Elijah's work was. Now we're there. Okay? So for the most part, to put it in a nutshell, his work mainly was focused around economic development. The doctrine fed the economic development because in order to build an economy, you got to get clean, you got to, be righteous and blah, 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 right? Okay? So the overall conversation was economic development because he literally had a whole campaign throughout his whole sojourn, right, of the economic blueprint. And then Farrakhan has spent 2 decades still relaunching Elijah's economic blueprint. So how is you picking up from where he left off when you spending 2 decades launch? You know what a launch is? A launch is an introduction. 2 decades? Make it make sense.
Well, they still got a farm and stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I actually was on the Ministry of Agriculture. You want me to talk about it?
Well, we got about 10 more minutes. But
okay.
But we gonna have to do a part 2 on this. So in a nutshell, man, you got to come back and break down this economic stuff. In a nutshell, what is behind Farrakhan, the minister, being seen as the Messiah? What is the real esoteric ideal? Is it, excuse me, brothers in the nation, I just have to ask the question. Is it on the level of occultism? Or is it self-serving ego?
Both. It's both. And, the thing about it is we all got one. We all got one. Some's just larger than others. Okay? But it's both. And the reason why it's both is because, again, we talked about the Million Man March. According to John Henrik Clarke, was an initiation. I'm leaning towards it because the proof is in the pudding, right? He's at the end of his life right now, okay? He has done everything he was supposed to do, okay? He did the self-improvement. He took out the nationalism. You know, like he followed the script. So in esotericism, you can equate it to the tree of life and get into level 0 of awesome, like reaching the pinnacle. You know what I mean? But because his people is not the true people, is based off of their ladder. You understand what I'm saying? Like their rise in the occult with them people is material. You know what I'm saying? And it's for stature and grandizement and stuff. On the spiritual level, it ain't got nothing to do with this. It's all soul. You know what I'm saying? And so what's happening with him is that he fulfilled what he was supposed to on this side. Now on the other side, that's a different conversation.
But in the occult, when you fulfill something on this side, don't they kind of connect it to the other side? Even though I know that they can't cross the borderline at will when it comes to the deeper mysteries of man. I get that part, but don't in the occult that they have some understanding that what they do on this side transition them into a certain status or station on the other side?
Yeah, now remember, you dealing with the number 6, the half-learned mankind, kind of a man, okay? So naturally, they would think that because they don't understand.
6 ounces of brain, people.
They don't understand what the real conversation is. So, yeah, it looks like that. So even the pharaohs, you know, back in Egypt, or the pharaohs, they, you know, the organs was in things because they felt, and they money and all that, they felt like that was going to go with them, right? That was like the idea, right? To get buried with all their riches. So when they cross over, all that stuff gonna come with them. The thing is that the spiritual world don't recognize nothing material. So everything, his whole career has been material. Okay? Because the question is, how many people know about the tree of life in the Nation of Islam? How many people understand that the ego must be eradicated? Well, we clear that a lot of them don't, because we've been witnessing the ego just being ridiculously out of control. Okay? Still thinking like a child, like nothing, not getting past the 10th sphere of the tree of life. You still on an animalistic level. If he was a teacher, then his job was to get people to the next level in their initiation. He actually refers to a lot of Masonic things in his later speeches about initiation and levels. So his initiation is a personal initiation. It ain't got nothing to do with nobody else but himself. That's going to put you in a bad area on the other side. That's not going to help you. Okay. But if you don't understand it and you got the others telling you this and you buying into it, then of course you're going to follow the script because you don't know. But if you really know, then you know you would have did something completely different. So now we dealing with souls being in judgment for 60 years. And that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. When your soul is in judgment, that means you're between worlds. You're not going to be able to pass through because you doing things that don't allow your soul to be in certain realms.
The purgatory degree. The purgatory degree. For all intents and purposes.
Right.
Man, you can't play with this thing.
If you look at afflictions on this side, it's all happening at the same time on the other side. Okay? And so look at his conversation. if you're looking, whatever's happening over here is happening over there. It ain't. It's not a hand clap.
Right.
Now for the vampires and the energy harnesses, they like that. Thank you. It's been an entire mind, and you know the other thing. Okay, that's what it's been, and it's sad. If you really understand what's been happening with so-called Black people, it's a really sad situation because they're still children. They still thinking like children. They're not elevating.
And to your point, sis, before we wrap, to your point, I watch the chat, and I watch the chat all the time when we have these conversations, especially these conversations that is very sensitive to some people because some of this information they feel that have saved their lives, it took them from a dark place in life, and I get all that. But I look at the comments, and it seems to me like I see my brother George says that he brought all these people to Washington and there wasn't a fight. Like, that ain't really accomplishment. That ain't like there shouldn't be a fight. I mean, like that's not accomplishment. Like, why is that such a big accomplishment that we of supposed to be black man is God, and you know what I'm saying? And I mean, why is that such an accomplishment that there wasn't a fight? Because we always fight? That's a European concept that we can't get together without confusion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and how you know it wasn't a fight?
Yeah, but even if it was or if it wasn't, why is that the highlight when we supposed to be there for social change and that did not come? Like, why we supposed to be there to look at some plans to move and mobilize this 1 or 2 million people into a better future for our children, and here we go. How far are we gone now? About 25, 30 years gone now, past, and there is nothing that was seeded in that march that we can see today. Nothing. So just to hear my brothers say, well, no one ever brought that many people together, and there was no violence. There was no, like, that's not a come up. That's not a
flex. It's
not a flex at all. That just sounds so
How is
silly.
that a flex?
That sounds so silly to me. I mean, we need to really stop that and raise the bar a little higher. We need to say we got 1 million people, or there's 1 million people to come to Washington, and if we could do that again, what would we do better? That would be a better response. What would we do better with all of that energy harnessed in one place to benefit us as a people? What would we do?
That part. Yeah. But I do want to read something that Farrakhan wrote. It's a bit ironic. In 1982, he warned that striving for titles and positions of influence could create the very conditions that destroy organizations, and emphasized that people should qualify themselves through study and work rather than compete for authority. That's his words.
That's going to be the show for the night, family. Now we got to bring sister back. Now we got to bring her back. It's something that you mentioned tonight about the economics. You know, you said, but that's another story. You said quite a few things that's another story. And we're going to get all them stories. Sis, what do you got to say in closing, sis?
I'm going to say I feel real bad for those that are still like putting somebody on a pedestal, and all the evidence that I presented tonight shows that that's not what that is, you know, and it's okay that that's not what that is. You know, he can be an American cleric. It's okay. He's on the internet as an American cleric. Okay. But I just think it's a psychological issue that, especially the brothers, because I don't hear the sisters saying nothing. Like, it's quiet on the sister side. I don't hear no sisters defending nothing. But it's the brothers. And to me, it just sounds like a lot of the brothers, they looking for a daddy.
But the sisters, when the sisters get conscious, and you're a sister, but it's still, it is what it is, and I'm not saying it because you're here. When a sister get conscious, that consciousness is taken a little bit more serious than ours, until we grow up and mature. You know what I'm saying? When a sister get conscious, they get conscious, follow consciousness. Some follow their husbands, some follow their boyfriends, and they latch on. And most of them that latch on, then if the relationship ain't right, it's going to fall apart. You know what I'm saying? Because the sister latch on, and she latch on hardcore and takes it serious. With us, sometimes we want to play the middle of the fence. Sometimes we in, sometimes we out. Sometimes we play double. I don't, you know what I'm saying? But I've seen many people, and I've done it in the past. We play double dutch a lot of times. In, out, in, out, in, out. You know what I'm saying? And so when a sister dedicate herself to any school of thought, their insight is a little bit more deeper than ours, because sometimes we play the in and out game. And I'm not saying that sisters don't do that either, but many sisters, through my experience, once they latch on to something, they are in it. You know what I'm saying? When we latch on to something, we are in it in our heart, but we just can't seem to make our body and our intellect follow to develop at the rapid pace that it's supposed to. And then one day when we slow down and we give it a chance, then we begin to see the fruits of our understanding, because we slow down, we take it serious, and we digest all the stuff that we already had taken in, and then we take on new stuff, and then we get better. But sisters seem to take it a little bit more serious. Seem to take it a little bit more serious when they latch on, and that's why a lot of sisters have a lot of more insight, and to your point, a lot of sisters in the nation probably like, man, I'm not getting in that messy stuff. You already know what it is. Look at it. They don't know that. Go ahead. It's kind of like a sister in the street that date a clown, or that be involved with a clown. Part. She knows he's a clown, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying? She say, okay, but this the best clown of the clowns. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, even when consciousness, I think sisters know that some of these guys are way off when it comes to doctrine, spirituality, and things like that. But listen, at least I got a man is the thing of the day. At least, I got a piece of a man if I can't even get a whole one. That mean, because all of us as human beings would want to be in a situation that, if we can be whole half of the time, it's better than being unwhole all of the time. You know what I'm saying? With a partner that, and he might not even be a bad guy. He's just a little bit slow.
Well, to not look at the truth when it's clear evidence, that's not slow. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something else. And again, all I hear with the brothers is, like, will the brothers go to bat for a sister the way they go to bat for Farrakhan? I mean, they go to bat like they want to cut your head off just for pointing out something that's actually true. But when it comes to a sister, they falling back. You know what I mean? So, this is a different energy that we're seeing here. You know what I mean? And we can't ignore it, because this is not a situation where this is slander. This is factual. This is documented information. And so the brothers, I just really caution them, know who you dealing with before you be defending somebody.
Indeed. Well, sis, I appreciate you, and we got to do this. If y'all enjoy this, please leave a comment so we can bring sister back next week. There's a lot of more conversations that I want to have. I have to say that, and I want to hear this. I know my brother Marlo probably is watching. Well, and I got to report to y'all, I set up a conversation with the Son of Man and Marlo. And Brother Marlo seems to be backpedaling on the Son of Man.
Uh-oh.
I talked to Brother Marlo today, and Marlo keeps saying that the Son of Man ain't ready. See, the Son of Man ain't ready. And I'm like, brother, that ain't something that you have to say to me. The Son of Man is ready to come on the show. He was ready to come on Wednesday. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if Marlo, Marlo, if you're watching, man, listen, I got to report to the people, brother. You know what I'm saying? You was talking about the Bible. The Son of Man is very sharp in that Bible. You know what I'm saying? Super, super sharp in that Bible. So, brother, I'm going to call you tomorrow. I'm going to try one more time. And if we can't get you on there with the Son of Man, hey, man, you know what I mean? You have to take that L, man, because, and when I say a L, I'm just saying, it's only a conversation. It's not a debate. And the reason why I wanted to see Brother Marlo and the Son of Man have a conversation is because the Son of Man is very proficient in the Bible. And Marlo claims to represent the authenticity of the Bible in which he walks in. So, but when the Son of Man, I mean, Son of Man got people shook. But I'm gonna tell you what I think, sis.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't gonna say he got Marlo shook, but he seemed like he was backpedaling today. I'm gonna bring the Son of Man on the show, and people need to hear the Son of Man because the Son of Man will probably be the one that receive those who maybe when the flock, you know, when they say the flock scatter.
Mm-hmm.
The Son of Man is solid in his position. He's solid in what he stands on. That doesn't mean that anybody know I still have my opinion on doctrines and all that, but he's stand firm and he's willing to have a conversation with anybody. And I admire those who are willing to have a conversation with anybody and everybody about a subject matter. And that's why I enjoy when you come on the show, because you speak your mind, and many people on the other side would not agree. And when I say those on the other side, that means those ones that are really enamored by the minister, in love with the minister, and still in love with the Nation of Islam, rightfully so. They'll say everything about you that you're not registered. She making it up as she going along. She reaching. But they would never bring any information to show where you're in error. And you have always said you will face anybody and have a conversation.
All day.
On Moorish
because
World TV.
I know what I know.
That's the difference between a lot of people, and that's the difference of Moorish World TV and other shows. If you say you know something, be prepared to face the opposition or to face one who may have a different opinion and have a respectful conversation. Because out of all this, we should learn how to have respectful conversations even when we are in total opposition and disagreement of our separate opinions. But close us out, sis. With anything you want to say, I'm out of here.
No, again, know who you following before you follow them.
Peace. That's what it is. Peace. So my brother say all of this held us back. No, conversations never held us back. Small-minded people that believe that conversations like this could held us back is what holds us back. This is the social media era, and on social media there is millions and millions of conversations. If you believe that a small channel like Moorish World TV can hold back 13, 14 million people, then man, I am humbled. But let me tell you, Moorish World TV cannot hold anybody back. These conversations cannot hold anybody back. In fact, these conversations will actually help you move forward if you digest the information and you take the information and go do some research examine it, weigh the information, and you may have a new perspective. I would rather say I didn't mean this. I got you, brother. I thought I grabbed that though. So mic check 7. My bad, brother, but that was a good expose that I broke down on that though. But what I mean to say, take the information, go back and check it out, see if the information is legitimate. If it's legitimate, then continue on. If it's illegitimate, turn away from it and get what's right. Feel what I'm saying? That's it. I appreciate y'all. Peace and love.
We do it for the culture, not for the vultures. We do it for the civilized and all of the ill-advised. We about to put the mission of uplifting on overload. When the truth is on board, someone is bound to be exposed. Subscribe, like and share. Welcome to the culture code. Yeah, we do it for the culture. We do it for the civilized and all of the ill-advised. We about to put the mission of uplifting on overload. When the truth is on war, someone is bound to be exposed. Subscribe, like and share.